TG Geeks, episode 187, September 17th, 2018. A children's librarian's serial killer wannabe. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the two gay geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery. Sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely, finally beginning to dry out Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, and
we're not in the
not the monsoon anymore. No. And I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from, I think that character, she should be called Mary Stabbins. Yes. Phoenix, Arizona.
Mary Stabbins. Yeah.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
In this episode, an interview with author Brent Jones of the Afton Morrison series.
Otherwise known as Mary Stabbins.
Yes, Mary Stabbins. Our birthdays, of course. Everybody's favorite, and can be yours too, the feedback section. But you have to participate. A couple of swirling news items, weekly website recap, and of course, always our follow-up items. We're going to get right to our interview. And this time we've got another author with us. This one that was introduced to us by Hamish Downey, our news sushi man. And he had done a little interview with Brent Jones, and he has written a series of, I would call them psychological thriller, mystery, murder stuff.
Yeah, that's a genre. That's a genre. You can go into any bookstore and you can find that.
Just look under stuff. Anyway, so welcome to the show, Brent Jones.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the first book was Go Home Afton, and since that time, there's been two others that have been released, correct? Two or one other?
Well, we've had... Yeah, book 2 has been released, See You Soon Afton, and at the time I believe you're airing this episode, we'll have book 3, Nice Try Afton, released on September 17th.
Yeah. So we have, I don't think you've finished it yet.
I haven't finished the first one yet.
I finished it, and I thought it was a one self-contained book, and then you left it on a cliffhanger, and it's like, holy crap! So,
and I would say that it doesn't read like any other book that I've ever read before.
Because we're waxing on, and you're just laughing in the background. But this is an interview about you. But it's not something that we have actually read before. I mean, it's not in our wheelhouse of reading. And what I said in my email was, we watch films like this all the time, but have never really read any of that. So it was different to read that, and it was kind of like, wow, this is really interesting. And I love the way you wrote it.
Thank you.
Very suspenseful, and as I said, a kind of it turns into a psychological thriller. I think you get a hint of that at the beginning, but then as it goes on, it becomes, and then it's like, holy moly.
Right. Well, thank you. I like to get that kind of reaction out of people.
Yeah.
It's when I write, this was a bit of a change of pace for me, the Afton Morrison series, because generally I've always written probably what you classify as like a contemporary fiction, literary fiction, and I really wanted to try doing something a little bit different. And with this series, it really was supposed to be more in kind of that thriller, crime fiction vein. And I appreciate you saying that it's unique, from other books that you've read. Even within this genre, is very often, just with a quick premise of the first book, Go Home Afton, is we have a small town children's librarian who's also a disturbed vigilante murderess. So she's plotting her first kill in the first book, somebody she feels is deserving and has suppressed these violent urges for her whole adult life. And sometimes people make very surface level comparisons, right? It's like, is that like a female Dexter, or something like that?
I was going to say that, yeah.
And I understand on a very superficial level why somebody might say that, but I think by the time you've gotten 30, 40 pages into the book, you see that's really not the case, right? It is a very different type of story.
Right. Yeah, I appreciated the way you unfolded Afton, if you will, and her life and her background and all of that, and then the whammy at the end, of course.
Right.
So, and not giving anything away, but going into it, I honestly thought, because in the little, I skimmed the interview that you did with Hamish, because obviously I have to, being the editor, and
sure.
I saw Go Home Afton, so I assumed it was a singular book, and so I went and bought it. I didn't pay attention when I was buying it that there were more coming at that point. Actually, you sent us a copy of that one, so I didn't look it up until after the fact. And realize, oh my gosh, there's more books here, and obviously coming to the end and that cliffhanger. So
yeah. I really wrote this series calling it a series. Sometimes I think I did myself a disservice. I called it the Afton Morrison series because it really is written as a serial. It was always supposed to be 4 parts. So I know sometimes when authors start writing a fiction story, they like to write a series of books, and sometimes those series serve as standalone stories, and you could kind of read them out of order. In this particular case, I had one greater sort of overarching story in mind, and I wanted to tell it in 4 parts. And so the question, because it really does happen in 4 very distinct parts, and each part sort of not only builds on the last one, but gets progressively, I'm going to say, darker and more disturbing than the one before it. And so for me, it was, one is I thought it best served the story to tell it as a 4-part serial. But the other reason why I did it is because I am a relatively unknown fiction author. And to have one great big daunting book, and by the way, all 4 parts will be released as one great big daunting phone book sized book this fall.
Cool.
But I really thought for somebody who may not be familiar with my work or may not be familiar with the story, they might prefer to start with a more bite-sized piece of it. With book 1, Go Home Afton, relatively inexpensive as an ebook, and check that story out and see what they think. And if they want to keep going, they can, purchase and read the next 3 parts, and have the whole story. But I thought it made a lot more sense to make it sort of a low risk for potential readers, right, who might like to just start with sort of, hey, let's read part 1 and see what we think. So that was the reason why I did it the way I did.
Cool.
Interesting.
So tell us what you have done before and how you kind of got into the writing. Have you always been a writer, or wanted to be a writer?
You mentioned that you're doing this full time now. This is your full time gig. So how did you fall into being an author?
That's a great question. I did always love to write. I always liked to do creative type things. And as a kid growing up, I came from a working class family. My parents worked hard. My father worked in a paper factory, of all things, right? And so sometimes he'd bring home like scrap paper and notebooks and different stuff like they couldn't sell or whatever. And I spent a lot of my evenings and weekends as a kid like writing stories, and my doodles were always garbage. I was never good at illustrating anything, but I always enjoyed writing. And then when I was 13 or 14 years old, I won a national creative writing competition here in Canada, like for in that age group. I think it was like the age 12 to 14 group. I'm sure the story wasn't great. Don't be impressed by that. Like, again, I was like,
you were 13
at the time. Yeah, but the thing is, I won $500, and I used that money to buy an electric guitar, my first guitar. And I kind of forgot about writing. Through all my teenage years and into my early 20s, I played music. I did a little bit of performing, not a lot, but and it wasn't until sort of later into my 30s when I was a little more established, and like I can take a step back from the business I built and I was running with my wife, that I thought, hey, I'd really like to take a shot at writing a novel. I've never done this. And
that was like last year or something in your early 30s, huh?
2016. Yeah, well, yeah, 2016 it was. Yeah, so a couple of years ago in the early 30s. Still in my early 30s, I guess, if we want to be technical about it. But, my wife hired some help with the business and kind of took over running things, and it gave me a chance to write the first novel and then write the second novel. And, now we're into this year where I've got this kind of rapid release format with a 4-part serial thriller coming out. So this for me was I guess you could say like a passion project, something I always wanted to try, and I had the opportunity to do it, right? And I think if there's something you love doing or want to try doing and you have the opportunity to do it and you don't do it, you're an idiot, right? So I had this kind of this wonderful chance to try doing something I really enjoyed, and because self-publishing has made the entire fiction landscape very, very accessible for an aspiring author, I was able to move fairly quickly with hiring editors and cover designers and getting some of my ideas into print and ebook. I say print as a sort of a broad stroke there, but so this was, for me, was something that was like I came back to doing that I'd always wanted to do, and for one reason or another, never really committed to doing it wholeheartedly.
Cool. You've talked about some of the technical and mechanical reasons as to why you approached this book in the manner that you did. Now, I'm more curious about the creative level.
Yeah, he's going to ask.
Well, I will get to that. I will get to that, but not just quite yet. Like I said, the story is a very unique one. Where did the idea germinate from? The genesis of that story. Again, like I said, unique one.
Sure.
But where did that come from? I mean, were you watching an episode of Dexter one night and then just kind of like had this fancy of, well, how about if I turn it on its ear? Something like that.
Yeah. No, you know what? No, I actually am a huge fan of Dexter, and but no, this is going to sound bad actually. But where I came up with this idea was watching reruns of Forensic Files. I don't know if you guys ever watched Forensic Files, but like you can stream them all on Netflix.
Right.
And you probably think it's terribly unexciting because every show is the same. As soon as they, that Peter Thomas is the narrator, and the opening scene, they describe about how some body was found, and you always know the husband did it, right? Like before the show even starts, it was always like the husband or the boyfriend or the live-in, whatever.
Right.
So my wife and I were watching that show one night, and I started thinking, it's not forensics. It isn't forensics that ends up catching these killers. It's usually something stupid they did. It's like, they left behind evidence all over the place, or they took out a life insurance policy 72 hours before they killed their spouse. Right. And so I started thinking, the only way I feel like people who really end up getting away with horrible, violent crimes like this are people who have no attachment to their victim. They no known associations, affiliations. So I started thinking, if I was going to write a story about sort of the perfect murder or a series of perfect murders, what would that look like? And who in a small town would be the least likely person to be suspected of killing? And so I've been since I started publishing fiction, I've been very closely connected with the libraries in the region where I live. And I spent some time shadowing the children's librarian here in Fort Erie and learning about her role and responsibilities. She did. It was really funny because I did a lot of research with her, and I thought, a children's librarian would be about the least likely person, the last person you'd ever suspect of committing a murder, right?
Yeah. I'm beginning to wonder, is there some secrets you're not telling us? I mean, is this art imitating life?
Well, it was kind of funny because when I of course the 4 books of this series came out as ebooks, but the first one I had a few print copies done for review purposes, and I made sure to get one printed for the children's librarian, Carissa, that I shadowed here in Fort Erie. And she was going around showing everybody the book, being like, look, this is me, this book is based on me.
Oh my!
She hadn't read it yet.
I don't know if I'd be telling people that, but thank you for letting me shadow you. I appreciate that.
My gosh.
Did she finally catch on?
What was that?
Did she finally catch on?
After a little while, I mean, of course she was joking, right? But at least I hope she was joking anyway. But I kind of poke fun at her for that. I mean, maybe you've got secrets. I don't know. Maybe you are a murderer. I don't know. You could be. Anybody could be. That was the point of what made this series fun, I think, is really and truly anybody could do some of the things that Afton does in this series. We'd like to pretend that that's not the case, but I tried to write it with as much of a sense of realism as possible, that especially if you live in a small town, a lot of these things I think will ring true for readers.
Right. Is that why you made Afton a female?
Statistics suggest that male serial killers outnumber their female counterparts 9-1.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I thought, if I want to create the least likely serial killer possible, she probably needs to be female.
Right.
And it kind of fit, in terms of children's librarians, the vast majority of them are female as well. So I thought that was a really good fit, and I had a lot of fun with creating Afton's character. It certainly became a challenge. I shouldn't say it became a challenge, but it was one of those things I constantly solicited feedback from my wife and my editor and some of my beta readers, who I made sure were all women. It's like there were a lot of times when male authors write female characters that certain elements or aspects of their characters seem almost disingenuous, right? So I wanted to get feedback kind of every step along the way. Like, hey, is this not only a strong female protagonist, but somebody you could believe in and somebody you could root for? So the first book in the series, Go Home Afton, got quite a number of revisions, actually, before we ended up at the final product, to make sure that in some deranged, morally ambiguous way, readers could identify with this character and root for her to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you put the book down and you're like, why am I rooting for this person to succeed? She's not doing a good thing at all, right? But, you get.
But you do. I mean, you become a cheerleader for her. I mean, you do. I mean, I did.
Isn't that sort of an indictment against society, though? Because so many times we hear about criminals that they almost become like anti-heroes
But you made the bad guy really bad. I mean, he's scum. So, I mean, it's not good to say, yeah, you wish you were dead, but you do.
But I think there's a piece of honesty to that, right? There's that whole. Most of us view, I think, most moral issues on two levels, right? We look at it and we go, of course we shouldn't kill people that do bad things, right? But then there's the other little party of it's like, well, maybe we should kill people who do bad things. I feel like most of us operate in a gray zone where we have this sort of conflict about what does right and wrong look like. And I think you'll find as you keep moving through the series that this is a question that Afton continually asks herself. Certainly there was a couple of big twists in the first book, but there's plenty more to come in books 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
And by the time, I don't want to give away too much because book 3 officially at the time we're recording this hasn't even come out yet. But, by book 4, it's kind of one of those things where the situation has spiraled so impossibly out of control for Afton and her companions by that point that every decision they make is a bad decision. It's like they're choosing between bad and worse, right?
Oh, wow.
At every turn to correct it. And so I found that really interesting, of course, as the author I would, right? But I hope readers found that interesting too, that, as we sit there reading this, thinking about what are her next moves, what should she do, we're kind of thinking in our head, she should do something that under normal circumstances no person should do, right?
Right.
So, that I think is a theme that you'll see explored more throughout books 2, 3, and 4.
Right. I want to say that you mentioned that you watched the Forensic Files. We were huge watchers of the CSI. We gave up on CSI Miami the last season, but we watched all of them through to the end. And
sure.
I mean, we got started watching CSI Las Vegas in season 3.
About season 3,
and then we had to back up and watch.
Yeah, we had to mainline seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah,
but we were fascinated with that whole crime scene laboratory. Of course, it was funny that we had a neighbor. Who worked for the Mesa Police or the Phoenix Police Department in their crime lab, and he said, "Oh, it's nothing like that."
And my niece studied forensics at in Oklahoma and was going to do that, but she didn't. But the thing that I noticed, there was one particular thing you were talking about. Has she got her hairnet on and this and her gloves on this and that and the other? And it reminded me of the one killer that had kind of an arc. He several episodes, over a series of he shaved himself. he put on clothing and everything, and I thought, oh my gosh, you've done your research on this, obviously. So
that's actually a very, very good point. What kind of research did you have to actually go through in order to be able to come up with a believable character in like this?
Sure. Certainly, I spent some time researching personality traits for people who tend to be withdrawn or have sort of abnormal. We'll call them abnormal social interactions with other people. I didn't want to make Afton a true psychopath in the sense that, for instance, and again, I hate to continue drawing this comparison, but, Dexter was supposed to be written as a psychopath, but as the series unfolded, the writers kind of wrote themselves into a corner where they're like, it's tough to keep making this plot interesting and compelling if he's a true psychopath. So by the end of the TV series, we're wondering, was he ever really a psychopath or not? I wanted to establish that from the get-go, and it's explored briefly in book one, that was not Afton's personality. And we still kind of wonder, where did these violent urges really come from? Where did this start, and what has continued to drive them? So it becomes a lingering question, or I guess we could call it a mystery that readers can speculate on as they move through the series. In terms of some of the forensic aspects, she's plotting her first kill and how she intends to make the incision and these sorts of things. These are bizarre things I ended up researching online. And I know I'm not the only author to say this, but I hope to God nobody ever looks at my Google search history. Because
you have to put in there every once in a while, I am an author, I'm doing research.
Trust me, believe me, I write stories. Because in some of the future books, like with book 3, I mean, there were things, like improvised explosive devices, how to build a homemade pipe bomb and things like that. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to be Googling this from my computer, but I don't know what else I don't know how to make a bomb. So, I got to look into this, right?
Right.
There were lots of little pieces like that felt almost uncomfortable at times. And so sometimes I'd pass the buck to my editor. I'd be like, hey, I think I got this right, but can you research it for me just to make sure that I didn't miss something here? I mean, you can go on her computer instead of mine, right?
Yeah.
So she won't mind me saying that, I'm sure.
Yeah, then of course, the people, the authorities are going to say, I'm an author or I'm an editor. That's a euphemism for...
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I'm going to let Ben ask his question that he asks all authors.
I ask all authors this, but this one's going to have this one's going to be sort of multi-layered because of your subject matter. So first off, how fully formed are your characters? Do they actually speak to you in your head to the point where you feel like you're almost taking dictation, like they're reciting to you what's going on? And if that is the case, how does that affect you psychologically speaking? I mean, being able to tap into that, that's a pretty dark side of the human psyche that you have to tap into to make that happen.
Right. Those are both excellent questions. So let me try to start with the first one here. I tend to like to plot things. And we talk about writers being plotters or pantsers. I tend to try to plot things as much as possible. I will say with the Afton Morrison series, for kind of the main characters, we got Afton, Tia, Chris, Jared, Kim. I spent quite a bit of time developing character Bibles for each character before starting. Basic things, not only just like what do they look like, what do they wear, little things. I mean, and just as an example, like speech tics, for example, kind of each character has their own little kind of speech tics and the way they approach things. And that became extremely useful working on producing the audiobook for the whole series, which will be coming out this fall. So I was able to share some of that stuff with my narrator, Kristen James, before she got started. But I really try to plot things out as much as possible before starting. What I found, though, not just with this series, but pretty well with everything I've ever written, but I will say especially with this series, is that despite all my best efforts in plotting, sometimes I'd write the chapter or I'd write the scene, and then it just didn't feel right to me. I was like, that's how I plotted it, that's how I imagined it, but as I've written these characters, I can't see this happening the way I first saw it happening. So I'd say certainly there were parts, particularly during more tense parts, we'll say, of the story, where I've ended up writing and rewriting several times until I really felt that what happened and the dialogue that unfolded was very, very true to the character. So combination, I do quite a bit of plotting, but I definitely like to let the characters take the lead when I've started writing it. They know better than I do what happened, right?
Right answer. That's
so
the right answer.
In essence, they do kind of...
They do talk to you.
They mold the story and they craft the story,
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It only makes sense.
Yeah. So again, especially since now you're a plotter, but at the same time tapping into this. This is a very dark subject matter. So I've heard of some actors or other writers when they've had to write material of that nature that it kind of sort of seeps into their more forward consciousness of the thinking. And they have to kind of like go off into a different direction and, sort of give themselves like a bit of a brain enema because it became almost too disturbing.
Yeah, and I frankly haven't given myself any kind of breakdown yet. So far so good. But
once it's over, you're going to have to write cartoons or something.
Going to therapy.
It could be. I mean, there were certainly times when. When I mentioned some of the speech tics for characters, I found myself saying things, and even working with like I mentioned, the voice actor to create the audiobook, where we'd be talking to each other, and I'm like, we're both kind of using aphorisms right now, right? Like this, we're kind of living in this character's head a little bit. So, I mean that does happen. A lot of I really feel this is probably true for a lot of writers, but the plotting only takes you so far. I needed to have something plotted because I always knew that this was going to be a fairly lengthy work and it was going to be a story told in 4 parts. So what I didn't want to do was write myself into a corner, write book 1 and say, that's really cool that this happened, but now I have to have 3 more books to come. So there was kind of always that overarching plot that was going to be there. It was really getting into the specifics of what happens that ended up changing a lot along the way, right? As the story unfolded.
Yeah. So
okay then. So wow,
that's amazing.
There's okay. So everybody, you want to check out these books, but if they want to learn more about you, what you're writing, and when things are coming out. How can they follow you? Any social media presence like the Facebook or the Twitter accounts or the Instagrams or the pins, whatever that is.
What is that?
Pin something.
Pinning something.
Yeah, the pin something. I don't know what it is. Pinstripe. I have no idea. Or a website. I mean, how can people learn more about you and your work?
Sure. So the best way to connect with me, I am on Facebook. The Facebook, if you prefer, Twitter and Instagram. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I am at author Brent J on all 3. My website is authorbrentjones.com. And if you'd like to check out the Afton Morrison series, the 4 books, that's aftonmorrison.com.
Oh, cool!
Very nice.
Yeah, I snatched up the domain from my character, right? So
no kidding. That's great.
That actually redirects to Amazon. To the listing of the 4-book series, where you can purchase or pre-order any of the 4 books from that page.
And then you're going to be seriously screwed once your series is done.
Anyway, well, thank you so much, Brent, for being on the show this time.
It was a great conversation.
Thank you for having me, guys.
It was a fantastic conversation.
I appreciate that. Thank you for chatting with me.
Hi, this is Tim Calloway, and I am a voice actor. And when I am looking for a podcast and listening on the interwebs, I listen to the 2 Gay Geeks. Mwah!
And I have to say, for people who may not know, Tim is an old friend of mine going back to junior high school.
Yes, and here we are with a few selected birthdays for September 17th through September 23rd, 2018. September 17th, Nate Burkus, Anne Bancroft, Roddy McDowell, Baz Luhrmann, and Kenny Rotter.
Happy birthday, Kenny.
Yeah. September 18th, Anna Netrebko, famed opera singer. She is wonderful. Greta Garbo, who was in several wonderful films and quit acting in 1937.
Yeah.
Just completely stopped. And she palled around with Aristotle Onassis.
She jet set it.
Yeah, she did, as a matter of fact. And she was in Mata Hari and anyway, and Camille, which was great. Also on September 18th, Fred Willard, who actually, I think he plays Fred Willard, but I think...
He's Fred Willard everywhere we go.
I think people look for Fred Willard in a character, and so they have him come in. So
maybe that's it. They just
Who knows?
This is in the script.
This is a Fred Willard
character.
Yeah,
okay,
there we go. Also, September 18th, June Foray.
We actually sort of sat behind her.
Yeah,
at an animation event in Hollywood.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
September 19th, David McCallum, Adam West.
Oh, that's interesting. And
Adam West. And Jeremy Irons.
And Adam was awesome at Phoenix Comic Con.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
He was fabulous.
It was great. He would have been 93, 94 this year.
Wow.
Yeah. Jeremy Irons, Cass Elliot, Mama Cass Elliot, who tragically died in 1974.
Yeah, what a voice.
What a voice, yeah.
Oh, it was so natural. I loved it.
And since we're setting the Wayback Machine,
my God, Twiggy.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet that the majority of our audience is like a generation after us, and they're going to say, Twiggy who?
Who in the heck is Twiggy? Well, Twiggy was a model in the 60s, and she was just this big thing. I don't know what she ever really did. I looked at her bio, and I thought, okay. But
she was the Paris Hilton of her day.
You heard about Twiggy all the time.
Yeah.
Also, and then Brian Epstein. He
was the manager for the Beatles.
Yeah. And James Lipton, heir to the Lipton tea throne. Or fortune. That's a different Lipton. Sorry. James Lipton, this one's the... Behind the actor
studio. It's like, okay, are you sharing something I didn't know? I'm surprised you didn't come back with it's a fact.
Well, it is a fact. September 20th, George R.R. Martin, John Bernthal, Dale Chihuly.
Dale Cthulhu.
Cthulhu, yes. He creates wonderful exotic art in glass.
That happens to look like elder gods.
Yeah, there you go. Also on September 20th, good friend of ours, Rob Palmer. Happy birthday, Rob.
Yes.
And Thomas Valliere, who was in
Morning After. Fabulous lead actor.
Yeah, he was really great. September 21st, Bill Murray, Stephen King, H.G. Wells, Jerry Bruckheimer, Chuck Jones, Gustav Holst.
Planets.
September 22nd, Billy Piper, Tom Felton, Joan Jett, and the Blackhearts. Although it's just Joan Jett's birthday.
I don't think the Blackhearts have a birthday.
Yeah. Also, Michael Faraday and Norman Gidney.
Happy birthday,
Normie. September 23rd, Mickey Rooney. John Coltrane.
He's the brother of Robbie Coltrane.
It's a fact. It's a fact. Different mother, but...
Probably different
father, too, as a matter of fact. Also, Ray Charles, Anthony Mackie, and winding up with Walter Pidgeon.
Okay, so Anthony Mackie played Falcon in the Marvel universe, and he shares a birthday with a pigeon.
Yep. How about that?
Ba-dum-bum.
I don't have my sound anymore.
I'm sorry.
So that's it for the birthdays this time.
Hi, this is Barbara Dillon, one of the co-hosts of Fanbase Press's flagship podcast, The Fanbase Weekly. During the Fanbase Weekly podcast, the co-hosts and I discuss the top geek news stories of the week. In each episode, we are joined by special guests from all across the pop culture spectrum to get their take on what's happening in geekdom. Past guests have included Jeffrey Thorne, writer of Leverage and The Librarians, DC All Access's Jason Inman, Debbie Lynn Smith of Chimera Press, Xena Warrior Princess executive producer Stephen L. Sears, Ashley V. Robinson of Geek History Lessons, and many, many more. Join us for an episode of the podcast that celebrates fandoms on a weekly basis. A new episode of the Fanbase Weekly is released every Monday. Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or look for the podcast at fanbasepress.com.
Go give a listen to our friends Barbara and Bryant Dillon over at Fanbase Weekly. You can find them at fanbasepress.com. And now it's time for everybody's favorite.
And yours too.
And yours too. TWO.
No. Hardly.
T-O?
Just T-O.
Yeah. To funny?
Yeah.
T-O funny? I love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
anyway.
It's feedback time, and starting with episode 185, got feedback first from old friend of mine, Corey Nelson.
Hey,
and
Corey.
She asks, and she sent us this on Instagram, so you can leave us feedback there. She says, any plans to install cameras when you do the podcast?
Are you kidding?
No. Because who wants to look at a couple of middle-aged, overweight queens? No, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll only be our heads. Maybe some talking heads, and that's it.
Yeah, Talking Heads. Hey, that's a name. That could be a name of a band.
Talking Heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, right up there with, well, I'm not going to say the other one because I don't want to give that one away. And then we got another comment from Bart Brooks. And this is in regards to the interview we did with Beth Cato. And he said, great interview. I haven't read anything by Beth Cato, but after listening, I am definitely going to check out the Blood of Earth series. It sounds awesome.
It is incredible.
And then we got a comment from Beth herself because there was included a little picture on the website. And she says, love that picture too. And then lastly, got a comment from Rhonda Parrish. She sat in on the second part of the interview with Beth, and she says, it was a pleasure to meet and chat with you.
Yay, Rhonda.
And then this is in regards to the CocoCon 2018, my CocoCon Experience wrap-up article by Andrea Richoff. And she just went on to say all the great things that she got to see and people that she got to meet at CocoCon. Got a comment from Eric Coleman, who is one half of
Cheshire Moon.
And he says, oh my, thank you. And then we got a comment from the other half of Cheshire Moon, that be Lizzie Crow, and she just says hugs. Then I got a comment from D. Estelle. Thank you for the wonderful write-up. And then lastly, a comment from Jeannie Koch, who is no longer here in Phoenix. She's now in Atlanta. Otherwise, she would have been there. Because she says, great write-up, and it makes me miss being there even more. And, Jeannie, we missed you, too. And that is our feedback for this week.
That's our feedback. And as I said, it can be your favorite, too, because you can participate. You can leave us feedback. We want to hear from you, our listeners, and the readers of our website. You can leave feedback on any articles, on any of our webcast places, wherever we find it. It's Instagram and
Twitter,
and
the
Facebook, and haven't done the Pinterest yet, or every place else. We don't have a MySpace account yet, or not for this show anyway. But anyway, you can leave comments there. You can on any articles, any of the webcast episodes, also on our YouTube episodes. And you could receive a shout out at a future episode like those people above did. We also have a listener feedback line. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's dying for use.
Yes, 469 TG Geeks. That is 469-844-3357. And in your comments and whatnot, please play nice.
You don't need to hear their identification. They're the two gay geeks. They can go about their business. Move along.
Well, this was a really wild last several days.
Wild and crazy.
Wild and crazy between Henry Cavill and Warner Brothers Studio. Apparently, the word came out that Superman, or at least Henry Cavill, is out. This all stems from them not being able to negotiate a deal for him to cameo in the upcoming Shazam movie. Now, we've got a number of articles on this. We're going to run all of these, put all of these in the show notes for this episode at tggeeks.com. But it finally came out with a tweet from the Hollywood Reporter. There was an update that said, statement from Warner Brothers, while no decisions have been made regarding any upcoming Superman films, we've always had great respect and a great relationship with Henry Cavill, and that remains unchanged. However, this all suggests that Warner's and Cavill's team could not come to any kind of agreement regarding a possible Shazam appearance. Plus, he's also signed up to appear in the Netflix The Witcher series. So that's where this whole thing kind of got started. But
and then it just blew up.
It kind of blew up from there because then Henry Cavill finally came up with a response that was vague, to say the least. And all he simply said was, today was exciting. Well, what's that supposed to mean? We have no idea. We don't know what that means. So that's what's going on.
Was it sarcastic? Well, that's exciting.
Oh, I know. But the weird thing is now, and this actually came out as of like last night. In fact, I think I read this while we were at dinner. Apparently, now the story is this was all fake.
Oh, please.
Yes, somebody in Warner Brothers' PR department just did this to... That's the rumor.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
That somebody at Warner's PR did this just to generate excitement.
Word heaven with something else. But.
No kidding. So enough of that. Who knows what's going on? We do know that they want to start focusing more on Supergirl for the movies. And we're not talking the Supergirl from CW. But speaking of DC and television, as of when this episode comes out, the DC Comics streaming service launched yesterday.
Wow.
Or if you're listening to this on Krypton Radio, it came out on Sunday, September 16th.
Yep.
And WoW is right.
Holy moly.
It's only $8 a month or $75 for a full year. And considering everything that you get, I think it's a really great idea. I just signed up for it. I'm really looking forward to it because they've got like everything Batman under the sun, including the 1966 trashy movie.
Ooh.
That's there too. So that's always a great fun. And, you know, hopefully
Does it have the Batman 66 series?
I haven't had a chance to look at that. I'm hoping it does.
Yeah,
I'm really hoping it does. They will be showing the new Teen Titans series, which I am very excited about, as well as Season 3 of Young Justice. And all of us Young Justice fans who used to watch it on the Cartoon Network, we're all really excited to get that. And so... the service will be available on a slew of platforms in the U.S., including iOS, Android, Apple TV, Android TV, and Roku. Or you can just watch it from your desktop or a mobile browser. Yeah, my Freudian blouse just showed. Your mobile browser a la Netflix.
A la Netflix.
Yes, and see, if Netflix and Hulu taught us anything, it's the original content takes a while to get it right. So, anyway, what I understand is that the new Teen Titans series will launch on October 12th.
Ooh.
October 12th. And there are other number of series that are going to be on the docket, as well as I read somewhere that, good heavens, we watched it a little bit on NBC.
About what?
Trenchcoat.
Trenchcoat?
Magic.
Oh, yeah, him.
Yeah, Hellblazer is the comic. I can't think of the character's name. It just went out of my head. Anyway, so I'm very, very embarrassed. Anyway, that will also be on the DC streaming service. So that is the news that we have for today.
And that's all the news?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counsellors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
And we continue to talk about mental health awareness since we're still in Suicide Prevention Month of September. So check out the Trevor Project if you need help. And for those that only listen to our webcast, we do have a website at tggeeks.com where we run all sorts of interesting content. Some of these items that we ran last week, a very busy week, Ben's going to run down those items for you.
And before I forget, so that people can stop screaming because I couldn't remember the name, it's Constantine.
There we go.
Thank you. So, starting with...
everybody that's screaming at your iPad.
You can silence now. Yes, it is Constantine.
That
will be... That's supposed to be on the DC streaming service as well, which that means we can catch up watching it.
Yeah.
Starting with Sunday, September 9th, Dr. Zombie, Monster Family Physician, Lucky Number 13.
How about that?
Then on Monday, the 10th, there was TG Geeks episode number 186, as well as a press release for the Scottsdale International Film Festival and their announcement of the 2018 dates. On September the 11th, Binging My Life Away, The Orville. Yes, Jeannie Koch.
Yes.
She finally watched all of it. And then on Wednesday the 12th, she came back with another Old Classics newly reviewed. This time it's for the 1949 movie The Third Man. And there was also a book review for Eschaton, which was the ending to the Infinity Engines series. On Thursday the 13th, a review for Lost Child.
What an incredible film.
As well as a review for the book Roar of Sky. What an incredible book.
That was I got that as a
gift
reading copy from Beth Cato.
Yes.
So it's not due out until October sometime.
Right. But the review's already out there, so if you want to know where it kind of heads and if it goes in a good direction.
There are some spoilers from the first two books, so if you haven't read the first two books, beware.
Beware. And then on Friday, September 14th, News Sushi, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond, number 28.
Wow.
And then on Saturday, September 15th, Bring It On, Benihana.
Yeah.
It was a review of the Benihana restaurant we went to back for my birthday.
It was an anniversary.
Anniversary dinner, that's right.
You can find all these at tggeeks.com as well as entries on our Facebook page. Please go visit and comment. And as always, we've got some follow-up items. Check out the widgets on the side of the page and at the bottom of each article that we have. We've got a widget on the right-hand side for Beth Cato's Roar of Sky. So you can pre-order that. And you can order The Last Son by Katie Edwards, his first novel. And
you can pre-order The Hanged
Man. We can't wait for that.
Very excited about it.
And we're supporters of Arizona Opera and hope that you will be too. We're going to have an interview with Joe Spector here
very soon.
A couple of weeks talking about the new season of Arizona Opera. It starts in, it starts late September, early October, and you can check them out at azopera.org. The first opera is Maria de Buenos Aires. It's a tango opera.
And very excited about it.
Our friend John
De Los
Santos is in town for the choreography, and so check out Arizona Opera. It's going to be a lot of fun. And check out our restaurant reviews. This is a new category that we've added. It's up there, like the Benihana, and several other interesting reviews of restaurants between myself and Jeannie, and others will be adding to that.
And I just checked our website, Louisiana Bistro. That's still getting huge hits.
It's still getting hits.
Huge hits on the website.
Amazing, yeah. And we're huge supporters of independent creators such as Brent Jones that we just talked to earlier. He's an independent author. We talk to filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, etc. Please consider supporting those independent creators that you run across. There's at cons, at book fairs, at this and that and the other. Please support them by talking about their work, looking at their work, commenting on their work, buying their stuff. Exactly. So support independent creators.
Special shout out to Doctor Who Talking Who on Twitter. They publish the Doctor Who Fancast Guide, which republishes our content. You can find them on Twitter by searching at Talking Who. Same goes for Michael C. Burgess. He publishes the Byronics Semi-Diurnal Aggregator, and you can find him on Twitter by searching at Byronic. That is Byronik. Same thing for the Human Arkle, who publishes the Arkle Times Post Dispatch News, and you can find him by searching Twitter at Arkle, Arkle, and he also has a YouTube channel. It's the Shameless Cash Grab. Look up Arkle Studios, one word, all together. And lastly, special shout out to your boy. Special shout out.
You have another one. Yeah.
I got another one. Yes, I do. Special shout out to the Facebook group, The Gay Geek, for allowing us to post our episodes and relevant story content there on their page. The group is facebook.com/group/The Gay Geek. And as always, a very special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves, for allowing us to post all of our content there.
Yes, thank you, Jeremiah. And thank you to everybody that has clicked on our Amazon ads, whether it's the widgets on the side or at the bottom of each article. We actually got some cash from them. It's amazing. You can click on those and shows Amazon that we get a little bit of traffic from our website, and you get a little bit of a kickback if you buy something from them. And lastly, we are now on Spotify, and you can check us out on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays. And please rate us and review us on iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Up next time, I believe that one is Joe Spector. I think we're
probably right.
From Arizona Operas, who we're doing. It's like the 24th or something. So that will be an interesting interview with Joe.
Oh,
He's
interesting?
Really a hoot.
Force of nature.
Yes, he is. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for the webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page of things that we talked about. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I am Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you.
Cheers.
Is anyone still listening?